Well, good afternoon, guys. Welcome to another Tech Tuesday. Michael and Israel here on a what is becoming more and more consistently hot and steamy day. Although we still got a little bit of nice weather. Um, so we're squeaking in a little Tech Tuesday before you head off to your favorite place down at the beach. Um, but I hope you're looking forward to getting down there. I'm sure plenty of other folks have been down. Hope everybody had a good Memorial Day weekend. Hope everybody had a safe weekend. Hate to hear about the drowning incident at the Southside ramp.
Saw some rescue boats out there, so I figured something bad happened.
That's awful. So thoughts and prayers go out to that family there. Okay, so I don't know. So service is obviously slammed. There's really not much more to say than that. But as always, we're getting into that time where people go, oh yeah, I want to take the boat out this weekend. Call, schedule if you need to get a quick service done. They'll do the best they can to try and squeeze you in. Yeah, it's pretty full. If you drive by and see the parking lot, almost all of those boats that are sitting against the grass side, that's all service boats. So I know every weekend we get folks showing up, crawling through all those boats thinking they're used boats for sale. So anything else big going on? Any issue? Just we're kind of hitting the stride of the season.
I have jury duty next week.
Jury duty. So we're going to do a remote from the courthouse for Tech Tuesday.
Well, I'm hoping they let me off because I got too much stuff to do.
Tell them you believe in legalizing marijuana, or you.
Don't I know that guy?
Well, when I had it not too long ago, they didn't have enough work for us, so I got paid the whatever it is, $25 that you make. So anyways, all right, guys, we'll jump in. I know Johnny Freeberg has got a question, and we'll dive in. He's got some electronics questions too. So let's jump in here. Good afternoon. Is there a recommendation for servicing, replacing injectors, or is it more of waiting until you have symptoms that warrant replacing? His specific, and correct me, I think, Johnny, you got a 300 Yamaha you just bought on a used boat, a big center console, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you got that Yamaha. So thoughts on that?
Well, it all depends. I would say typically, I would wait until you had some symptoms. There's a few engines out there that may warrant doing that. Like if you have a really old HPDI, I would say.
No.
So you was wrong.
I was. So, what motor did you have?
But some of the HPDIs have some filters and some. Well, in your case, that's not a very easily serviced item out there. So I would.
Are you talking? Okay. Yeah. Well, I think he's still got two boats. So
you have two boats, John.
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, didn't mean to throw you off.
Usually E-Techs, we have to send those off to be cleaned. There's a specialized type of injector. They're like this big, about that big around. So
okay.
We don't do much with that anymore. Back in the day, we would replace them when you could get them and replace them, because you had to go on the computer and put like coefficients in there for them to run right, and that system's becoming a little more obsolete and hard to deal with. So we try to shy away from the E-Tech world nowadays, unless it's general maintenance.
Gotcha.
But on some things, if it's newer, if it's 20 years old and it's set for 2 years, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and clean injectors and stuff, clean the whole fuel system, really.
So, what's the damage if you don't do that? And it's a ticking time bomb. let's say, obviously you never know, but let's say it was going to happen, 10 hours in. After
Well, it depends on the engine. The four-stroke seem to handle like a lean condition a little better than like a two-stroke. But if you have an injector that, let's say it partially clogged up and you're only getting half the fuel and you're running, 6,000 RPMs, and that happens, and typically it starts melting the top of the cylinders.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then that
then it can lock up.
Then that becomes more and more expensive.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Usually E-Techs, the injector just fails. Either stays open or closed or partially open or partially closed. It depends on if you're a pessimist or optimist. So
I'm a partially open kind of guy.
okay.
So all right. Timmy Taylor, thank you, sir, for joining us. As always, any updates on whether Yamaha is intending to release an app that lets equipment owners see engine data?
I think they are, I think they are trying to go down that road because they already have the technology. Because we use a mobile device. I believe I was talking to one of the, my teacher about a month ago when I went to Yamaha. And they seem to be developing some stuff, but they wouldn't just say it. So I think it's coming, especially since Mercury's already got theirs. They like to be competitive, so why not?
Yeah. Seems like that's a pretty good Mercury system's a pretty good little solution.
And it's I mean, our little device is Bluetooth. We can run down the river and see engine data, hours and stuff. So. They're probably not going to make it quite as comprehensive as they make our stuff because I think they still want you to come see us when there's a major issue and not try to look at data yourself. They might give you some RPM and codes, possibly engine hours, maybe range of engine hours, but I don't know if they'll give you like a bunch of data, like live data. So we'll see.
Right.
But they definitely have the technology already.
I'll look at Bluetoothing it to your phone that then automatically uploads all the data so that then they could get on the phone with you and you could actually pull up all that data and do a little diagnosis.
Well, the way he said it is it will load a file. At some point, I think they're going to make it to where it'll load a file. They might not necessarily be able to look at the data, but then it'll send it to their home dealer.
Gotcha.
Because that's what Mercury does if you want to keep up with it. But, you'd have to keep up with all your customers and, all their information and look at it all the time. And there's not that there's, a problem with that, but there's so much going on.
Right.
That it's hard to put another little thing on your plate. But,
yeah.
But if it's one of those things like, well, hey, this is what happened, I sent you the data, and then you can look at it before the boat gets here. Sometimes that can be nice.
Well, speaking of before the boat gets here, another question from Timmy. It's 2020 ZX250. The bilge pump stopped working. Anything quick, simple we should check before bringing it into the shop?
Yeah, you probably, if it's the automatic bilge, it's there's a fuse either near the battery on yours or on the battery. I would check that and see if it's blown first. Because a lot of times it'll just be a blown fuse.
All right.
And I think yours has got the breakers underneath the console, so you want to check that too.
All right. Basic question, but again, it's that time of year where folks are getting out and doing service. This is Yamaha 2014 F200s. What weight oil are y'all using? Seeing two common options.
10W30 is a pretty good all-around oil, especially, and it depends on where you are too. If you're in a super hot environment, you might want to use 20W40. The 10W30 usually helps a little bit in the wintertime. If it's a synthetic, usually it's a 5W30.
Okay.
But if it's Alabama weather, it's not going to know the difference between those two oils because the reason you have the range there is if you're in cooler climates, it flows a little bit better when it's cool, and then once it warms up, you know.
Hmm.
The hydraulic effect is a little better. So,
all right, here was a fun one. And if y'all got more questions, drop them in there. I've got a couple that I found in the, as always. So, stupid DIY mistake. Long story short, T8 4-stroke was tipped over, oil all up in the cylinders. I was draining the oil by removing the spark plugs and pulling the starting cable to rotate the engine. When his buddy sticks a hose in the plug hole to siphon out the oil and catches the piston. Now there's a hose stuck in the spark plug hole pinned by the piston. How can I rotate the engine backwards to remove the plastic hose? I'm thinking either remove flywheel or remove head, and feel free to laugh. At least he's got a good sense of humor to himself.
well, he can all he's got to do is, I mean, we don't like rotating the engine backwards just because it's got a timing belt on it and they can put slack in it. But in this case, it's such a small engine, it's not going to matter. He just needs to take the flywheel cover off, and with the spark plugs out, he'll easily be able to rotate it backwards. Some clutch dogs, sometimes you put it in gear and rotate it backwards, but you know, two things are going to happen. Even if he does the flywheel backwards, it's going to flip the ears of the water pump backwards, and sometimes they get stuck backwards and pump weird, like little squirts like this.
Gotcha.
So, but he should be able to just barely get it moved enough to pull that hose out. Yeah, it's usually not a great idea to put anything in a cylinder and turn it over. So that's enough right there that if it stopped it, it can bend the rod.
Mm.
You know, which is also, you know, when he got oil in it, when he put it back up, like and went to crank it, if it hydrolock, some of these motors hydrolock, it bends the rod.
Mm.
And it's makes a little noise afterwards and doesn't run quite as well.
All right.
Hello,
Mom. So here's one. I'm gonna end it on this one, guys, unless y'all have anything more. But this was a comment, somebody doing their research on motor brands. This was in the Yamaha group. Read that Yamaha is supposed to be one of the most reliable. All these posts with engine trouble are scaring me about buying one now. So I'm gonna start with this and then get your thoughts on it. You know, and there were a couple of people that went ahead and put in the comments on this question that, well, you're in a Yamaha owner, you know, it's a Yamaha motor group where the majority of what's done in there is people trying to help troubleshoot with problems. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you look at the number, and I mean, that's a pretty big Yamaha group. If you own a Yamaha, I highly recommend, you know, going and joining that group. A lot of saltwater stuff, but it's global. But if you think about the number of problems that are posted versus the number of Yamaha motors that are out there, you know, so anytime you're doing your research on this stuff, you know, I mean, just take all of that stuff with a grain of salt.
Absolutely. I can give them real good advice. Okay. Go look at a car forum. And if that convinces you not to buy a car, nothing else will. I mean, because you go to a car forum, I don't care what year model, it could be 2022,
right? Any
brand car out there, and you're going to find thousands of posts on problems they're having. So if that's the case, you probably don't want to buy a car either. Things break, you know, and some of it's user error. You know, some people don't even know they're breaking their boat. You know, I mean, I had a bunch of calls before this weekend. It's like, hey man, I pulled out my slew 20 feet and the thing went dead. And I was like, did you just fill it up with gas? Yeah. Well, you probably got water in your gas. You probably went to a place that just filled up, or we had a hard rain last week.
Yep.
A lot of people got water in their gas. But, you know, not everybody's going to know to tell them that. And so they're going to be looking for all these problems and say they got a problem. But it was self-induced, whether they knew it or not.
Right.
I ran into a sandbar. Motor overheated and melted everything on the block. That's self-induced, you know, whether they meant to or not. So it's not always a problem with the engine. It's a problem that happened to the engine. And a lot of it can be, I don't know, I couldn't tell you a percentage because I just had to make it up. But there's a good percentage of issues on these engines that are all, you know, pretty simple stuff, or it was user error.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's I mean, people don't tend to go on the internet, once a month and post, "Hey, my motor's doing great," um, so
yeah.
that's a tough one. But
I've had a lot of people didn't realize they ran out of gas and they came and I had to charge them an hour because I had to look over all this stuff and ding, 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 nothing in the tank.
Gotcha.
So it happens.
So yeah, maybe instead of asking that question, ask, "Hey, could I hear from some folks that some personal experiences on reliability?"
I can tell you the most reliable boats out there, engines, are the ones that people use in their maintenance. If you don't maintenance it, it's going to have problems. If you don't use it, it's going to have problems. And the latter is the worst. Because if you let an engine sit up 2 years, you will have problems with that engine for a while.
Yeah,
until you get all the little stuff worked out.
That's yeah. When people are shopping used boats around here, and you see a 2012 model with 48 hours on the motor.
Well, people come in, it's like, man, this thing, it ran great last time I took it out. I don't know what's wrong with it. Well, when did you take it out? 8 years ago. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, there's your problem.
Yeah. So, anyways, I just thought that was a good comment and kind of a good topic of discussion and and what you do and researching and trying to find help. But I will say again, if you're a Yamaha owner, the Yamaha group, there's a lot of folks willing to jump in there. Yep, Timmy, that's why you use your boat as often as possible. But I don't know that I haven't found a Mercury group. I'm sure there's one out there. I guess I just haven't taken the chance.
I think they all hang out at screamingfly.com.
Okay.
Probably.
Well. Anyways, all right, guys, we're gonna get out of here, and you got a bunch of work you got to get ahead of so that you can go do jury duty next week.
Well, and I'm gonna be gone for 4 or 5 days before that. So.
Well. All right, guys. Glad everybody, at least all of you, had a good, safe weekend, and hopefully everybody's getting ready or has already had some good time on the water. And let us know if there's anything we can do for you. Again, if you need some service, certainly call before showing up here and see what our availability is, and we'll do the best we can to try and take care of you. So, all right, guys, y'all take it easy. We'll see.